from Delhi the Explorer with my amiga.
Hi, Pinky from Bon Dia con Pinky, and together we are
Bougie Tias! Cheers!
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2, número 2.
Dos. Today we are going to talk about bougie and what does bougie mean to us? Because hence Bougie Tias, the podcast. But like we mentioned in the first episode, why are we doing this? Why not? And it's kind of why this name or why that's the focus of the conversation at the beginning.
Yeah,
so how do you define bougie?
Like bougie to me is like luxury, high class, like living our best life.
The first thing I think about is the song Bad and Bougie from Migos. Bad and bougie, bad and bougie. But coming from like bourgeoisie, I mean, and back in the day, it has this like upper class connotation to it, which could be true, right? If women are making money, if we're making money and we're wealthy and we're in this abundance mindset, we have the right to feel luxurious and we're worthy of that, right? Talking about worthiness and the affirmations we talked about, right? I'm worthy, I'm loved. What's the other one? I am enough. So I think we're kind of taking this term and making it our own, but also giving people permission to also be in the energy of what it means to be bougie.
Yes, and anybody could be bougie, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like you don't have
exactly.
to have that. Yes, the wealth comes in with the definition, but you don't have to have that wealth or luxury to be bougie.
Right. It's kind of like a mindset.
Yeah. And like the Tias part comes like in because we're both aunts. Delisa isn't aunt to like her cousin's kids, and she was always like a babysitter, so it's like an aunt.
Yeah.
And I have two nieces and one nephew, and I feel like we're like that aunt, that tia that they want to come to and like ask for advice about life and to show them like, hey, it's okay to fail and it's okay, to do certain things, but just keep going and don't ever let anyone tell you that you're not good enough for anything. And that's what I want. That's what we want to show, like everyone, not even just to them, but to everyone. Like you could be bougie in your own way, and you're like go-to tias for advice.
Yes. And live your most authentic life through the lens of what it means to be bougie. And tias, like growing up, we've always had that tia that was always fun, and you always went to her to talk about certain things, and like who's always funny and like in a good mood. So I feel like we want to embody kind of that essence of that tia and also we're a little older, a little bit more wise, that we want to share what we've learned along the way, but also, I mean, share what we're still learning in life. I think is part of the bougie tia's fun.
Yes. Yeah, and we're both from, we're both first generation Americans. Alicia, you can start with your, background.
Well, like I mentioned in the first episode, my parents are from Paraguay. I was born in New Jersey. So I call myself a Ameriguaya, Paraguayan American. And growing up, I grew up around other Ameriguayos and Paraguayan Americans. So we were always surrounded by first generation children of immigrants. They were our friends, and then our parents were friends. So I always felt like we weren't out of the ordinary. Like it was our normal because we were always in these circles. So I didn't really identify as first gen until like college, where people were like, are you the first to go to college in the US? And I was like, yes. But my mom went to school in Paraguay. My dad was about to start college before they immigrated. So my uncle's a lawyer. So education, or like higher education, is part of our like family experience. My grandmother is a teacher. She's licensed. She was a teacher for 40 plus years. So she has formal schooling, formal education in Paraguay. So, and then in high school, all my friends were like Latinos or Portuguese, identifying, that moved from Newark to Bridgewater. So I always had friends that were first gen, and we didn't even think about it until like college or now. Now we talk about it and we're like, oh, I guess we were first gen. I guess that's an immigrant thing. I guess that's like a parents of immigrants story, but that was our normal. So I guess with Bougie Tias, we're also wanting to showcase representation for first generation children of immigrants or daughters of immigrants, because being a daughter is different than being a son. And we'll talk about that in another episode. But we really want to unpack that and like motivate people to be a part of, like, to be proud of their heritage and be proud of their lived experiences. So yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with Alicia. Mine's a little bit more complicated, my background story. So I am Portuguese Indian and I'm American. I was born here. But my great grandparents were from India. My parents and grandparents were born in Africa, Mozambique. So at the time it was a Portuguese colony. The war broke out and everyone went to Portugal. So culture-wise, I am Portuguese, but like religion-wise, I am Hindu. So I do follow both, cultures. And I don't come from higher education family. My parents did it to what, fourth grade, and then I don't even think my grandparents ever had an education. So coming here and growing up in Newark, I also didn't feel like I was first generation because Newark was Portuguese based, so everybody came from Portuguese immigrant. But when I moved to Greenbrook, that's when everything changed, and I was like, oh wow, like this is real life. Like my parents' mindset is completely different than these Americans. And it's such a different mindset. And in college you go through a lot. Not, high school for me was probably the hardest because I just moved and I was kind of like bullied in a way. I didn't really have friends. I didn't have anybody from New York that came with me, so I didn't really connect with people until I found some of my friends, and I was like, oh, okay, a lot of them were Americans, some of them were from first generation. But yeah, it's so different, and our parents or my parents didn't know like the experience from schooling here. So it was kind of hard. Like I feel like now when I have kids, I would understand them more. Like, oh wow, like I know high
Yeah.
school's gonna be tough for you. I know college is this, college is that. Like, like applying to college for us was the first time. My parents didn't know
Mhm.
anything about it. Like I have to have two other sisters, but it was the same, process
It
for
was
us.
different. Yeah.
They had no idea. Like going to college was also very like, oh wow, you graduated from college, and we're like, yes, but such a big deal for us because we are first generation Americans.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Exactly. Like I feel like now we have a lot of tools that we'll share with our nieces and nephews, hence Thea, and also our younger cousins and our children eventually, if we decide to have children or want children or have children in the future. Um, or even like for me, like I'm an academic counselor, so a lot of my students, they're not my children, but I share with them my own experiences so they feel identified. And in that way, I'm like an academic bougie Thea.
yep, yeah, and I agree. Like our experience can help, like
Yeah.
the next generation from us.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, I know what's going on. I know you're not gonna like go to a friend's house. You're going to a party. You're going to a house party. I'll be at that house party. Don't worry. I already told my nieces and nephews. I was like, your parents might not be this crazy, but I'll be the crazy Thea. I will have a location on your phone, and I'll make sure I know where you're going. And I'm very
Yeah.
open. Like, party drugs was a big thing in high school.
Oh, wow.
Especially in the area that we grew up, like you would see drugs everywhere. So obviously they're gonna want to experience that, like the drugs, the alcohol. And like our parents, or at least my parents, they never really experienced that in school.
Yeah.
So I'd be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I know what you're doing. No. I mean, or if you want to, sure, but I'll go with you and I know what you're doing. Or if you need anything, like call me up and I'll go get you at the house party. If you want to try this drug, okay. But I have to be there, just like I
Yeah.
don't want them to be so close-minded like we were growing up.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me it was different because in high school I was ninth grade until ninth grade I was in Paraguay. So I lived middle school years and high school freshman year in Paraguay, where I would go to quince. So you were a bit like open to going to I guess chaperoned parties would be the thing. Um, I guess, called to translate it here. But in high school, I was actually part of Dare. So was it Dare or Share? Sorry, Share. So we would go around like educating on like binge drinking and drug abuse. And I wasn't really part of that scene in high school. So I don't know if, I mean, I'm sure it did exist, but I don't, as a bougie tia, that's an interesting conversation to have with like younger children, especially with this TV show called Euphoria. I haven't seen it, but it's causing a lot of conversations around like drug abuse and high school students and all of that stuff. So I kind of want to watch this season now just to see it from like an older perspective versus living it in high school. But those, even navigating any experience in high school as a first generation is new to us, or was new to us. And our parents bring their culture and their like upbringing into that conversation, and we'll, I think, navigate it differently because we grew up here and it's a different thing. But we hope that you guys feel like you feel represented and identify it in like our podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we want. That's our goal.
That's the
Like,
goal. So
like, oh yeah, I did that in high school. Oh yeah, you're right. You know. And I want you guys to also like laugh by yourselves while you're listening to us.
yeah. Not take life too seriously
Yes.
or yourself too seriously.
Yeah. And I also think like me and Delicia love to travel so much because we come from the first generation. Like at least for me, I started traveling at a very young age. My parents were big travelers, and the minute they got their green card, because hello, like they didn't have their green card, they were illegal here, so they worked hard to get
Yeah.
their green card. And I have two other sisters. So finally, when I was born, I was what, a year old or whatever, I think a year old. They were finally got their green card, and that's when they traveled back to Portugal. So I've literally been traveling since I was 1 year old. So like from there on, it was like going to Portugal, and then when you're in Europe, you want to travel Europe, and you're allowed to travel Europe, or go to Asia because go to India, or I've been to Thailand when I was like 7. So I've traveled at such a young age. I have such a different mindset, and I thank my parents for that.
Yeah, same. My parents got their green card in 1990. I want to say, I don't know what the specific year, but I remember going to Paraguay for the first time and in 1995. So we went through that experience, and I was 4 years old. So since 4, I've been traveling, and my parents would go to Paraguay, or we would go down the shore in New Jersey or Virginia. Like they were always up to traveling and going and exploring new places. I mean, if you think about it, our parents are the ultimate explorers because they immigrated to a country they maybe didn't speak the language, didn't know what they were going to find, and like just took this big risk. So when we feel like uncomfortable taking a risk, I always remind myself like my parents made that happen for us to like live this life we live in the United States and be able to travel the world, right? Because of that, I wanted to study abroad, and because of that, I wanted to live abroad again. And like when I was in high school, I wanted to live in France for a year. It didn't, or not France, I'm sorry, Australia for a year. So it didn't end up working out, but I ended up going 6 months when I was in college. So I'm really grateful for my parents and like our parents who, like, if we have an idea or a dream or want to go explore somewhere, they're like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
they support us.
Yeah, and like my parents came to America with no money.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing. Like I don't know. I can't see myself going to a different country, which I don't know. I don't speak the language, have no money, and like try to figure it out. And like I am grateful. They suffered a lot in this country, but they made such a better life
Yeah.
for us, for the three of us, for me and my sisters, and now my nieces
Yeah.
and my nephews, and the
Yeah.
next generation. But yeah, they went through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. When we get nervous about doing something, it's like, wait a minute, but we speak the language. We grew up here. Like we know. We just are
yeah,
scared because of like maybe internalized fear, or like we maybe had to work on our self-worth or like our insecurities, because we all have insecurities, and like work through that to like feel like we can do something.
Yeah, and I even look at my mom because she raised pretty much three kids on her own. My dad was around, but he was always working. So
Yeah.
like seeing her being so independent, so being strong, like she had to hustle to like
Hmm.
take care of us. And three kids, three girls, it's not
Yeah.
easy. So like
Yeah.
I look up to that, be like, when I become a mother, like I'm gonna be independent, I'm gonna hustle and get through this.
Yeah.
So
Same. Yeah. So shout out to our parents.
yes.
So let us know in the comments how you define bougie. Are you gonna take that as like an identifier, bougie tia, or if you're bougie hermana or abuela, or and then if you identify as first gen, what are your first gen experiences? We would love to know. Tag us in on Instagram, subscribe to YouTube, and until the next one,
Yes. Bye guys.
beijos.
Kisses.